Welcome back to the Bucket Bros. I'm your host, Ronnie West. That's Bobby. We are here to talk some basketball with you. Did you get whatever you needed to in the back seat? Or are you good?
Yeah. As you guys can tell, I'm not in my usual setting. Currently, I had to do this one remotely and even secluded remotely, which doesn't make sense. But if you were ever wondering what the inside of a 2022 Subaru with no options looks like, this is what it is.
Exciting. Well, yeah. So, like Bobby said, this is like I just said to him, this is an experimental episode. He's on the road, mobile. I've got some new gadgets and Fandango things to try out in this episode. So we're glad you're here. We're going to talk some basketball. I will step up to the plate. I haven't watched that much basketball. I've gotten the NBA in the last week has been primarily off of social media.
Shame.
So shame on
Shame.
me. I did catch the end of the T-Wolves game last night against the Suns, so obviously I still get my Homer basketball in, but as far as trying to be a league moderator, insider, I have failed this week, and so I apologize to all of you. But I bring a lot of extra stuff at you, so hopefully we can make something of it, learn from each other, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, maybe we could do a Timberwolves spotlight again for you at some point, since it's
Oh yeah.
it's what you're getting a master's in this year, which I like. I like that. Okay, you're making progress, my friend. So how do you want to start this off? Do you want to do some fast break stuff first? I do have a little list here.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's get into some fast break news and let's hear some of your hits. Let's go.
Okay. I mean, it'll be a short list this time around, but one thing that we didn't get to mention during last episode, I don't think anyway, my memory don't rely on it, but um, watch out for those Houston Rockets. Obviously, I was high on them early on in the beginning of the season. They were one of my overs, I'm pretty sure. And boy, I think they already hit it, or they're really, really close. They currently
Yeah,
stand at, I mean,
here.
I wouldn't say commanding, but number two in the West, 5 games behind the Thunder. There you all right, yeah, there you go. Look at
So
that.
here, let me fast forward a little bit and we can see the Western. So here's the West right here. So hopefully you can see that. I will try to zoom in for some of our mobile viewers. But yeah, continue.
Well, we all knew based on how last season went that they were very much an up and coming team, but they have come. They have arrived. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but they're pretty exciting to watch. They're a very defensive heavy team. I don't know off the top of my head where their defensive rating stands, but I'm pretty sure it's top two, top three. If I wouldn't be surprised if they sit number two behind OKC currently in that stat. And it's a lot of young guys, a lot of effort. You know, the one of the Thompson twins, Amen Thompson, seeming to have a breakout year this year. He is really coming along. He's started for the Rockets recently. I'm not sure if he's quite a power forward, quite a point guard, somewhere between. But that guy has athleticism for days and a whole lot of hustle. He just had his career high mark, 33 points against the Celtics in a win that they squeaked out, which eh, they they didn't do so in sloppy fashion. They looked really, really good against that Celtics team overall, especially down the stretch when Tatum was bringing the ball down the floor, starting the half court offense for them, and he was calling out Şengün, trying to get Dylan Brooks off of him. And what was Şengün doing? He was meeting him 5 feet above the 3 point line, not giving him anything. And yeah, the Celtics obviously have been a little bit shaky of late. Nothing that I would be too cause for concern. I think maybe they're just in post championship fatigue right now. They need that All-Star break probably more than anybody else. But yeah, the Rockets
Yeah.
were able to exploit some of their weaknesses. I mean, I don't know. I don't know who to talk about more specifically. There's so like I could run down the list of their roster and just kind of highlight like good things about that
Yeah.
team. But there's a lot. There's a lot of good things to say about this team. Um, yeah, I'm not sure if you have any comments on it for basketball games you watched 3 weeks ago involving the Rockets.
Well, I think it kind of comes down to we've talked about this before. Of thinking like, oh, I'm going to watch a lot of Houston Rockets basketball. Definitely wasn't something I was thinking I was going to be doing as much as like in Cleveland Cavalier basketball. That those were going to be the two. Like I gotta make sure appointment viewing that I'm checking them out.
You should have just asked
But
me. I would have told you.
oh yeah, well you did beginning of the year. I'm just saying like having gone through the season and I'm watching more and more of this team. But yeah, Sengun I think is the one that usually kind of jumps out at me, and it's funny whether and I'm not anti-American. Obviously, I'm wearing this shirt, but I think it's fun seeing all of these international players kind of step up, which proves I forgot which sprinter. Obviously, he's already forgotten that says like, "Oh, the world champions of what?" And it's like, well, the NBA is bringing in all of the best from all of those other leagues. So yes, this the NBA can say that it's the world champions, and I've heard, and I think we'll probably get into another conversation of how Maverick Carter starting that international basketball league to rival the NBA. So that's something that we'll discuss in the future because I think those are just kind of rumors. But back to Houston, I think they're definitely a fun up and coming team. They're one of those ones that you saw after the Harden fiasco and everything that kind of went on and then kind of rising from the ashes and this is the playbook of how you the blueprint, I should say, excuse me, of how you kind of frame and rebuild a team from the ground up with draft picks, with trade capital and stuff. So they've done a fantastic job. And to me, yeah, Houston, I think, is a great team to highlight.
Yeah, I mean, Ime Udoka, their head coach, continues to have a great start to his career. I mean, I believe this is only his third season as an NBA coach, and he's won a lot of games. Even after having that controversial firing by the
Yep.
Celtics. Yeah, I mean, Şengün, he was known coming into the league for being sort of an undersized center who had a really good post game, and he does. I mean, the guy's got all the moves. I mean, he looks like Kevin McHale makes Hakeem Olajuwon out there. He just, he kind of has like a mini Jokic sort of counter move type style to his play. But I mean, I'm honestly really really impressed, and I kind of alluded to this, but by his defense and the way he's fit that culture. Um, he is not like he's not like your ideal rim protector where you expect him to get a lot of block shots, but he's got a big reach. He knows where to stand. And he's a smart player, gets his feet set, and then he goes up with those two hands, that he gets the vertical space, that the refs allow him the vertical space. And I mean, he really deters a lot of shots at the rim. And I mean, not to mention that he puts a lot of effort on perimeter defense as well. So I really like the way Şengün's game has been developing. Do I think he's going to be like a perennial all-star? Not necessarily, but he's a great starting center for a team that's in second place in the West currently. I mean, I know I've mentioned over the summer, sort of the pickups they had. Fred VanVleet, maybe he makes a controversial amount of money this year, but clearly, the veteran presence is adding value to this team. To have like a sturdy veteran point guard who has been in the NBA Finals down these stretches of games. I think it creates sort of a calming effect to these younger guys. And I mean, the Rockets have continued their winning ways, even with Jabari Smith Jr. out with a fractured hand. Looking forward to his return. I mean, they have been so good this year that two of the young guys, I believe, second year player Cam Whitmore and their rookie, who I was really really high on as a potential rookie of the year candidate, Reed Shepherd, they're not even getting playing time because their roster is so good right now that they can't even carve out a spot for the young guys. That may change over time as the Rockets have to eventually start paying everybody, and I think just the way the NBA works is going to necessitate some moves that they don't want to have to make. But I mean, they even have talent coming up the pipe already on their team. They don't even have to go, and they have. I mean, I don't think they have all the draft picks moving forward, but they have some really valuable ones from the Suns. They got a lot to work with. I hope that they don't make any alarming trades this
Yeah,
before
you
the
mentioned
before the
that.
deadline.
You
Yeah.
said that last time. It's funny too because I'm like I want to see when the Windy City Bulls G League team comes in and if they come into town because I feel like that team would probably be pretty loaded if like you said they're you got to find time for these guys. How do they develop it? And you don't do that sitting on the bench. So that's why I think the G League is such a big contributor to helping these teams grow and getting better and seeing that talent kind of come up and fit their system. Well,
Anyway, watch some Rockets games. Watch some Rockets games.
yes,
It'll be worth your while, I promise.
yeah, indeed. So the next thing I at least kind of want to touch on, I don't know if it's on your list or not, but I think it's something that kind of people are. We're about 6 days away from the trade deadline. 7 days. I think it's next Thursday. Um, Obviously, we've got all of the Jimmy drama. Like he's posting online that his Amex isn't working because he's an unemployed employee. And so that's this big thing I'm seeing everybody talk about. Like, this is obviously both sides have failed in this whole thing. If Jimmy would have waited till probably the end of the year, he would have gotten whatever he wanted. He would have gone to a team that would have given him the money that he wanted, but just kind of putting up this temper tantrum here in the middle of the season. But I get that. People want their money, and it's all a big hoopla. Um, so something is obviously going to come to a head. Nothing as of this moment, unless I've seen something come down Twitter here or X in the next few minutes. Um, but one that I also kind of wanted to get your reaction to that I'm hearing, and it's one that we've kind of discussed before of their the front office's mismanagement would be in Sacramento, and now De'Aaron Fox is apparently on the trading block. And so for me, I feel like you mentioned before, they bring in DeRozan and you're getting rid of Fox. Like to me, that's just does not make sense. As far I get it if it's you got to fit under whatever aprons and you're trying to get salary cap down, but to me, De'Aaron Fox is somebody who's still he's like an Anthony Edwards. I still see another step up in their game here in the next couple of years that I would be excited to see and wouldn't want to give away. So, what are your thoughts here going to the trading deadline? Anything that you're suspecting popping up here in the next few days?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, De'Aaron Fox is kind of the talk of the town right now, just because the Kings have, at least publicly, somebody from the Kings has publicly made it public that they're looking to shop him, so to speak. Now would I guess would be the time to do it. Potentially that or the off season. I think for De'Aaron Fox's sake, I get the sense that he wants out of Sacramento, and I think in terms of signing an extension, being traded before this deadline works out best for him. He's got one more year left on his contract after this, 37 million next year. Um, and obviously he's going to be looking for some max money after that. So any team he gets traded to, if they are trading for him, if they're giving Sacramento the bag, then uh, I mean you got to be willing to pay this guy for 50 plus million over the next 4 years, 4 or 5 years, and that's going to be he's I believe 27 now, so that's going to be into his early 30s, and his game is based upon athleticism. He's not a great shooter. He's kind of a smaller scoring guard. I mean, he functions as a point guard, but obviously he's a score first type guard. Um, we know that he can be a contributor on a playoff team or fringe playoff team. I don't think of him as somebody who's going to go to a city and spark, the next big run for them. So
You don't
he
see him as like a Rondo type. That's maybe it's my own Wildcat envisioning him being another Wildcat, Kentucky Wildcat. But to me, that's how
that's a
I
good
see him as like a Rajon Rondo comp.
that I mean, so in terms of like his athleticism, perhaps, but the way that they play their offensive game, Rondo has much better vision in passing than De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox is trying to get to the hole, and he does so exceedingly well. When he's playing at his best, he can be pretty efficient for a guy his size. Um, I would say in terms of what's available in the trade market for him, with the buzz that you're hearing. I think best fit, at least in the very near term, is the Lakers. I really, I think that would be like the perfect guy for the Lakers in the next season, maybe two, depending on how long LeBron plans on sticking around that team. Not that I wouldn't trust necessarily the Lakers' chances at free agency. Um, but uh, but I don't think that's where Fox wants to go because long term, he's going to want to be competing for years. And then we start getting into the likes of Miami. Can Miami make a big move and hang on to Butler simultaneously? Is Sacramento interested in what they have to offer, which would be what, like Tyler Hero and I don't know, other matching
What?
salary and then whatever picks they can give him?
But why would you be keeping Jimmy? Like, why would Jimmy play again in a Heat jersey? I don't see that. I feel like that bridge has been burned. Like Riley is going to
Potentially.
force him
I,
to
I get I
play.
get
Like
I get
I don't
I get a tough
see.
I get a tough read on Jimmy because, I feel like these tantrums that he's having, I don't love his style as much as they are entertaining. I think Jimmy mostly wants to play competitively and he wants to compete for a championship. And the writing on the wall is that the Heat just, they made two finals in a 3-year span, which was amazing. They were the dogs both times, and so, I don't know how. It's amazing that they made that run a second time, let alone once. But the writing's kind of on the wall that like the way this roster is currently constructed, they're not going to be able to do too much moving forward, unless perhaps that they're able to make a deal that actually makes sense for a guy like De'Aaron Fox. So that might re-spark Jimmy willing to stay and play in Miami. But you're right. Otherwise, they would be looking to make a swap perhaps, or get a third team involved. But even then,
Yeah,
I would ask Miami, like, why would you do that? Just to be a 9 seed again? Like, I'm not sure what you're fighting for at that point.
no.
Um,
I was watching somebody's live on TikTok earlier talking about like what to do with Jimmy, and he was saying that there's no way that any Heat trade doesn't include a third team, just because of like the way that everything is structured to kind of get anything back.
this
So
is a bad year. This
yeah,
is a bad, like I would call it a frustrating year for any sort of a trade.
movement.
Just
Yeah,
because, yeah, I mean, it's the first year of the new CBA rules. Um, So I think it's going to take a couple of years, as you've been hearing around the watering hole anyway, to sort of relieve some of the congestion that teams are dealing with, before things sort of reset, so to speak, and the money gets comfortable, with under the new rules. Because right now, anybody who has made a bad trade or currently has a bad contract from the last set of CBA rules to the current set, is just really really feeling nervous. They are, yeah, I don't know. They feel like you do after you've been on call for 24 hours and have pulled an all-nighter and are just trying not to let the place burn down. I mean, that's kind of where these teams are psychologically, I feel like, because it's really, I mean, you just have to get so smart with any move that you make moving forward. And I mean, yeah, obviously the Suns, like, okay, I would say alternatively, if not the Lakers, sorry, we're still talking about the Aaron Fox. I was about to jump into Jimmy Butler. Um, I've already
it's
told you
both.
that but I mean, yeah. But so anyway, the reason that we talk about Jimmy and now the new exciting shiny toy, Darren Fox on the trade market shelf is just because there's really not much else to talk about. There's not a lot going on. I think I see a lot of small moves, if that, um, for this trade season. But I mean, the Suns would be an interesting fit as well for De'Aaron Fox. I don't know how I necessarily like him paired next to Devin Booker, and I'm certainly not convinced that Bradley Beal, again, unless the third team gets involved, is willing to waive his trade clause to go to Sacramento. I don't think that that's like the dream destination he was looking for the next few years. Um, and then, gosh, other teams. The Rockets come to mind. I know we just kind of talked about, like, I'm a little wary of them making any big move. I mean, does putting De'Aaron Fox in place of Fred VanVleet, does that really give you a lot of other options or more wins or more playoff wins moving forward? I'm not sure that it does. It takes away shooting, and they already kind of have a lot of overlap in Houston of De'Aaron Fox's skills. I mean, they just signed Jalen Green to a 3-year extension. I know that Jalen Green doesn't play point guard, but similar sized guy, really athletic, fast guy, who's trying to get to the hoop. That's kind of what Amen Thompson's doing right now as well. I mean, granted, he has more point guard skills, but why do they need De'Aaron Fox on this team? It wouldn't make any sense to me. So, yeah, I mean, I think Fox is a more exciting player on this current market than Jimmy Butler, just because he's currently in the middle of his prime, uh, and but I do think that the shooting making a big trade for a shooting guard is notoriously tough, just because of how many smaller players that are very like offensively minded. It's a very saturated position in the league.
Yep. No, I think we've beating this one. I'm curious to see kind of what what comes about here in the next few days. Because yeah, it's interesting. I know there's lots of I see all kinds of crazy stuff that's on there, whether it's uh, mostly T Wolves stuff
Yeah.
typically, and the
I mean,
one
yeah, well,
big.
if not, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and the one that's so weird and crazy, and I will play this. This will be our T Wolves beat right here, the little bit that I'll go into. But like trading Julius for Jimmy, like that to me, it's like as a Wolves fan, that I don't know if I like that at all. Whether I'm keeping Randall or getting Jimmy, either one, I feel like I don't know what to do. And it's like Randall's been fun, obviously. Great assist to Edwards' monster slam last night. So it's hard to like sit here and say let's trade Julius um, without having seen a full season of what him and Ant can do. Granted, I think the sample size we have, it's not as thrilling as we're all hoping, but I still
I mean,
get up. Go
I
ahead.
think Jimmy might be a better fit than Randall, but again, it's a very short term deal, and the Wolves have made a lot of those in recent years. So, what capital is what assets? I hate to use that word when it comes to players, but what assets are the Heat extracting from the Timberwolves in that trade? It's
Yeah.
with the
Well,
lack of picks you guys have moving forward, it's going to have to be young talent. So what besides
yeah.
Julius Randle's
No.
contract, what young talent are you willing to get off of on that team to have Jimmy for a few years?
Well, that's the thing. Is it? Do we want to keep the young talent? And this kind of sets up this clip too. So it's to me, I we have to figure out something, and so obviously, like I've said before, I feel like the 6th seed is kind of my goal for the season. If we get there, they're sitting at the 7 right now, 5 games over 500. So to me, it's like let's get to the 6th seed. This is a 3-year plan, and so here I'm going to play this clip. This is from Score North. If you're in Minnesota, obviously you probably know Mackey and Judd.
Should be the next 3 months for the Timberwolves. Focus on getting into your next 3-year window. So number one, trade Julius Randle. Don't let him dictate with that player option what happens to your entire roster and what happens to Naz Reid. Get out in front of it. Get to the next step in that cat trade. Empower Naz Reid as a big minutes starting power forward. To the Rudy Gobert thing, I would do an audit of who's getting minutes as part 2 of this. Rudy Gobert, hey, KG was playing less at age 32. Tim Duncan at age 33 was playing like a few minutes less per game. So I would start with just auditing who's getting minutes. And Mike Conley, by the way, is getting minutes at the end of some of these games. Mike Conley has not made one clutch time shot all year. Inside 5 minutes, the score 5 points or less. He is 0 for 10 from the field halfway through the season. I would
Ant's
give
0 for
those
12.
open minutes to Rob Dillingham. I would start Rob Dillingham. I would play Rob Dillingham at the end of games. Because, again, the goal is not to avoid making a mistake with Dillingham. And the goal is to empower Dillingham going into next year and the 3-year window into a monster. And I'd be putting Terrence Shannon Jr. in. Hey, there's no Dante DiVincenzo. I'm reducing Mike Conley's minutes. Let's give Terrence Shannon Jr., a first-round freaking pick, a chance to see what he can do for 8 to 10 minutes here.
So yeah, I think there's some options that the Wolves have. It's just a matter of where. Oh man, as sad as I was. Where does A-Rod want to see this thing going as far as the construction of this
He will
Timberwolves team?
spotlight propaganda.
Yeah. So to me, I really love hearing about the young players. I'd love to see Terrence Shannon Jr., Dillingham on the floor with Naz Reid, with the Jaden McDaniels. I think that's a fun, like maybe not fun is not exactly what the Timberwolves front office is looking for, but a young, exciting team. So
Yeah, I
I
mean,
kind of agree with this. I'm just curious your thoughts on what he had to say.
I like what he's saying about Julius Randle. That was kind of they were sort of borrowing him to make their next trade, assuming that he wasn't a good fit, and he just really hasn't been in Minnesota. And you certainly don't want to have to try to get rid of Naz Reid, who between continuity, what you have to pay him, how he fits there. I would say he's the better fit long term. So, I mean, who's looking to take on Julius Randle? I mean, I think honestly, like unless you find a team where that has like a glaring hole at that position, perhaps the Sacramento Kings,
I would love
they
De'Aaron Fox. I was sitting here like
uh,
biting my tongue. I was like, we're trying to elevate Dillingham when I see Dillingham, like De'Aaron Fox is like what we want Dillingham to be almost but I
yeah.
think a better distributor. So sorry, I bit my tongue earlier and not trying to be two T-Wolves of a homer. But yeah, I'd love it.
I would love to see the T-Wolves land De'Aaron Fox, but boy, can they do it again? Can they make another trade of that caliber at this point? That would
Throw
be really, really
Gobert
tough
in.
for them. Yeah. I mean, you would have to
They
sacrifice
have
at
to.
another position. I feel like I just don't know. I don't know what it would take. And so going back to that clip, I think he's getting a little bit trigger happy on Dillingham. I think everybody who's
We all
listened to
are in
this show
Minnesota.
knows that I'm a Dillingham supporter. I was actually kind of excited about that two pick for one trade, Dillingham being the pick, and um, but I mean, it was a future cost. Is he watching just the highlights of Dillingham, or is he actually evaluating his this rookie altogether? Because yeah, I
He's
mean,
being
I mean, obviously,
super
obviously,
efficient.
coach. I just I mean, empowering him, yes, but you tend to want to do that when you're not worried about losing. And right now, the Timberwolves are really worried about losing. Uh, I I
He's
think we got
getting
to see
he's
more from
getting more
Dillingham.
minutes. He's getting more minutes lately, obviously because of the Dante injury and Conley's
Yeah.
age. So he's getting more time, and he's playing with the second unit. I don't think they're putting him in these situations where he feels uncomfortable. He has runs with the first, and he's being efficient. Like I think there was one game he had 15 points in 12 minutes, and so
Oh yeah, we
he's
talked
getting
about
in the
that one last
game.
time. Yep.
And the one last night, he had a highlight. Granted, it was a little low. Behind the back pass. I think it was to Na in the corner for a three that kind of set him up. I think they won up 12 at that point. So he's definitely there in clutch moments. He's getting experience, which I think is what obviously all Timberwolves fans want. Um, so yeah, I get it that he's still trying to find his NBA-ness, I think, is kind of where he's still at right now. So, but if
Yeah.
we were to have a seasoned veteran like Fox in front of him to learn from, I think that wouldn't be terrible either. Unfortunately, we
Yeah,
might have
for
to give
sure.
him up.
The next thing I was about to ask you, did Rob Dillingham shoot his first free throw yet in the NBA? And it looks like he did. He at least
I think
he sunk
so.
a couple last night.
Yeah.
But I realized that Conley is a problem, and if you could just magically turn him into De'Aaron Fox, that would solve a lot of problems for you. But that would
Yeah.
be I don't know how you do that. And I think I have no criticism of the Timberwolves for how they've been trying to develop Dillingham with this current roster, who's vying for to be competitive in the playoffs. I mean, like they were last year. And you want to talk about clutch time moments. It's like, yeah, Dillingham could score in bunches, so you may get a little bit of electricity from him at moments. But again, for a guy who shot what two free throws this entire season, that doesn't really speak efficient during clutch moments for me. So
But
again, I
that
would I would
speaks
I
on the
would proceed
whole.
with caution. I would proceed with
That,
caution.
that is my biggest thing that I will continue to ring the bell with of my aggravation with this Timberwolves team is like not when you're going through a rough spell shooting, like changing and trying to go to the hole and get closer to the hoop when you're having a rough spell rather than staying in the corner. To me that's just it's a mentality thing when I see a dude who's just like that's going to tin cup it and just be like, I'm going to make this regardless, and just sits there swinging, and it doesn't matter what happens. It's just like, I'm going to get this shot in the corner, and then it finally hits, and that might help your confidence. But if you would have went in and got fouled, got a free throw, practice, you like just had a different look at the hoop, it gets a little bit bigger. And so I get so frustrated when I see guys just sitting out on the 3-point line, getting the ball, not being aggressive. Even Ant last night, like just pulling up, taking quick shots when you have no rebounders anywhere. And obviously, when you take a 3-point shot, the ball doesn't go 2 feet from the rim; it bounces out about 8 feet. But you're taking these shots with no one there for the possibility of there being a second chance. So yeah, it's frustrating at times, but they're managing. And obviously, I'm a fan, so I'm going to nitpick all of the bad plays and not pat him on the back for all the good ones.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
but
Dillingham,
that's being a
is
fan.
he puts up the ball fearlessly, and he comes off of
Mhm.
screens with such speed that it's just like automatic space for him to fire away. So I like what I'm seeing from him. I wish, get back to me next year or the year after that, where his timeline starts to make sense with his teams, and they have a big hole that they have a couple big holes to fill. There should be no rush to do it because, as I've already said, that getting off of Towns' contract was a future move. It was not an immediate move. It was a future move because they want to maximize Anthony Edwards' prime. They don't want to lose him. They don't want to get him to get frustrated, and so they're trying to open up space to allow the most amount of talent on that roster possible for years to come. Uh, but since we're talking about rookies, I just want to give a quick plug for a team that we've already mentioned, the Miami Heat. I believe one player that they would not include in any trade package would be the rookie Kalel Ware. I don't know if you've been watching any Ware moments,
When
but
I
Kalel
saw that
Ware
name,
was
when you sent it over, I was like, huh? I'm like, I got to go back and rewatch some stuff. I am ignorant and am unaware of who
I'm
this person is. So please
I
educate
myself
me.
I myself am not sure if he would prefer Khalil or Kalel. So I'm just going based off phonetically what I've heard.
I'll
But
do it for you.
the number 15 pick in the
Just for
2024
you.
draft. I think I got it right though. I don't know. I mean,
You did it both ways, though.
rack it up, rack it up. Yeah. The number 15 pick in the 2024 draft. Solid post lottery pick for the Heat. This kid looks absolutely great. If you haven't seen already, he is currently the odds-on favorite for Rookie of the Year. I'm not saying that he is the actual Rookie of the Year amongst vote getters, but there's a reason that he's turning heads. He is 7 feet tall, thin guy, over 200 pounds, but very thin, kind of an Evan Mobley type frame, who has the athleticism to go with it and has something Evan Mobley doesn't have, and that is a silky smooth jumper. The way this guy releases it, I mean, it looks so effortless. And with everything that's been going on with Jimmy lately, he's been getting starting minutes. He's been starting alongside Bam, so they've kind of got a little Twin Towers thing going themselves, where Bam stays a little more in the interior. Kalel stretches the floor a little bit. But yeah, I mean, you'll see that in recent games, he's definitely been putting up a string of 20-point performances, some 20 and 10s in there. He's shown that he could be a good rim protector. I mean, he still looks like a rookie out there, so I'm not saying give the guy an award this year, uh, but uh, but yeah, I mean, athleticism for days, great shooter. I think the kid has a very bright future in the NBA as long as he keeps his nose to the grind, and I don't think the Heat are looking to get rid of him anytime soon. Anytime, really solid number 15 pick, as the Heat
Now,
are known to do.
now, and I might have missed if he was injured, but Jaime Jaquez Jr. isn't hasn't he kind of came up? Has he kind of come back down? I haven't paid much attention to him. Obviously, if you're highlighting him, I feel like because I at the start of the season I felt like there was this big rise and people getting behind him and his game. So I wasn't sure what's been going on with him lately.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of in like a little bit of I wouldn't call it like a sophomore slump, but I feel like you kind of see like a leveling off of his game.
Okay.
Jaime Hawk is like, I don't expect him to necessarily be an all-star. I mean, maybe that would be like his ceiling would be like fringe
I was just
all-star.
more thinking of like
Uh,
a solid starter or like just a
yeah,
good
oh,
role player. I
absolutely.
felt like he kind of had that
Yes,
a name that you would know in the media if you were a kind of a passerby sports fan that he's a solid
yes.
player kind of deal.
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, he was like one of those players where it's like, man, if the Warriors had just drafted him, man, if the Lakers had just drafted him, teams that need guys who can kind of come in and act like veterans right off the bat, who needed that extra jump from their draft. The Heat picked him, and those other guys didn't, and they had the chance to. So. But yeah, no, he's been a solid player. He's just sort of like this, like super energetic, can shoot, can get to the rim, sneaky athleticism, wild man on defense. He's gonna Caruso you a little bit. He's gonna do things that don't necessarily show up in the stat sheet, but the announcers are gonna be screaming his name because of the type
Okay.
of energy he brings. So yeah, he's a lot of fun to watch. I feel like I haven't been hearing too much Jaime Jaquez this year, and maybe it's just because the Heat have had a whole lot of other drama going on.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, moving forward, I think the Heat. And speaking of like potential Heat trade packages, I think they would also try to not involve Jaime Jaquez unless they were getting equivalent young wing player back. Um, yeah, absolutely. And then so a couple questions I want to ask you. These will be like some really weak ass trivia questions, but they're gonna seem unrelated for a second, but then I'm gonna circle it, bring it all back. Don't worry. So SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, obviously one of the best scorers in the NBA, a metronome, as I've heard before him called of scoring. Uh, Let me ask you, do you know how many 50-point games has SGA put up? And might I remind you that he is currently averaging over 30 points a game this year. I believe did so last year and has been sort of on that line for some time. How many 50-point games has SGA had in his career?
My gut reaction is 0.
So it's actually two, and both of them occurred within a week, just recently.
Okay.
Um, his he dropped his
I was gonna
his
say, did he have 56 recent? I thought there was. I thought I saw something, but I thought it was high 40s. So
yeah. So no, he yesterday he scored 52 against the Warriors in a losing effort, which I would love to see a stat on that of how often a number one seed has had a 50-point performance in a loss. That can't happen very often. Um, And a week prior to that, against the Hawks, scored his career high, 54. Before that, I don't know the exact number, but it was like mid high 40s was his career high. So basically, like his range was like, I'm gonna give you like 20 or about like 40, and everything in between. I should actually narrow that a little bit. It's more like 25 to like 42 was his range, and he was like hitting it every single time. But he's actually dropped a couple of 50-point games recently. I'm gonna take a pause on that for a second and I'm going to bring up a stat that you may not know very well. It's called box score plus minus. It is one of those advanced metrics that takes essentially whole number counting stats, um, puts them all on a computer, weights them by their position and per 100 possessions. So it's one of those like best player type metrics, right? Like if you have the highest BPM, you're probably the best or one of the best players in the NBA. So who is the all-time leader in BPM?
and you're Michael Jordan.
Actually, he is number two. The all-time leader in BPM, who's got Jordan by almost a whole point, which that will sound like a lot more once I start talking about this more, is Nikola Jokic.
Oh,
And then that will probably make this next question a lot easier. Who has the highest BPM in any given season ever?
Jokic.
Yes, that is correct. Not only does he have the highest ever, he currently has the highest ever this season. Um, he's trying to beat himself, who he already held the number one spot at 13.7. 13.72 to be exact is the BPM um, metric that he has attained. Prior to that, the number one spot was LeBron James for his 08-09 season with the Cavs, and the top five currently is completely dominated. Four out of the five are otherwise dominated by Nikola Jokic. It was MJ who had the number one spot before LeBron beat him in terms of single season BPM in that 08-09 season. He edged him out by a little bit. It was Jordan's he threw down a 12.97. So LeBron was the first person to crack 13. Nikola Jokic's BPM currently this season, and mind you, LeBron's best, who's the only other player to have gotten this high of a BPM in a single season, 13.24. His current BPM is 14.23. It is an absurd number. Now, the BPM, I mean, you can go on stat reference and read multiple and multiple paragraph pages about all about the stat and how it works. But it does weight offense a little bit higher than defense, just naturally because there are more offensive stats and defensive stats. But also, I don't think that's unfair because the NBA game is a little bit more offensive defense. And if you go down the list of all-time BPM and single season BPM, you're going to see a lot of two-way players on there as well. Like David Robinson holds the number five spot all time. So it's not just offensive players that are dominating this category. Um, I wanted to say both of those things to say what will it take from SGA to beat Nikola Jokic at an MVP this year? Because what we are continuing to see, and I know I feel like I bring this up every time we talk, but what we are continuing to see out of Nikola Jokic is just absolutely absurd. Just triple double after triple double, um, automatic points, rebounds, assists, just every single game almost. And like I mean the on-offs are still just absolutely ridiculous. And it's not like it's yielding small results. I mean the Nuggets again, not a super comfortable lead, but are currently in the number 4 spot still. And so what would it take at the end of the season for us to say if all of this continues to trend the way it does, and I had to bring up the SGA thing because I was the point gets a little bit smashed with recency bias with SGA just having dropped 250-point games. So, um, but like,
Even
what would we
before that,
have to see?
I'd say even before the 50-point games, because I don't think having those is what's going to, like, all of a sudden at the end of the year, he's got 17 50-point games. I don't think that's going to be like, oh, he's got to have the MVP. I'll if you're giving me the question, like, what does he have to do? I'd say starting out, they have to be the number 1 seed. They have to have half as many losses as the Nuggets do. I think he needs to have a few triple doubles this season, like 5 or 6, just to say that he can do it. And I think he needs to push that scoring up a little, like get in the top 10 in scoring. I don't know. I think he might be close. Is he? Where is he currently? And that's just off the top of my head. I think.
I believe he's number 2 currently,
Okay.
if not
So
number
he's.
1. Let
So I
me.
think
I'll verify that for you. I don't know. I don't know my. I
if he
don't.
can be a
So okay.
scoring champ, number 1 seed, like half as many losses, sprinkling of triple doubles, and I think the biggest thing is having prime time moments. I think he needs to hit a big shot, like on ABC on a Sunday when everybody's watching after the Super Bowls, after football's done. Like, I think he needs to have some of these moments that stick in people's minds, like, oh, SGA, like that was a moment. Like, I think Jokic can keep doing it, and everybody's just like, oh, yeah, great job, another one. You're huge and amazing. Like, I think we're going to be so bored with it. And that's as a US, like, what have you done for me lately? Like, you're not exciting to me. We're an ADD society as far as America. Like, to
Voter
me,
fatigue. What you're describing is called voter fatigue, which is definitely a phenomenon we've been seeing lately, with especially with
yeah, but I
MVP
don't
voting.
think we felt that with Jordan. Like, there wasn't that. And like, we were
There
excited.
absolutely was. You want to talk
Oh,
about voter for how many
you were
he
in
won?
Chicago. You were
You
in
want to talk
Chicago.
about how many MVPs that he did not win that he should have won?
Okay. That's,
The same could be
okay.
said for LeBron James, by the way.
Yes,
The same
yes.
could be said
And
for LeBron.
so I think that's fair point, but were was LeBron doing these, like, let's rip up the books because you're in, like you mentioned before, he was a first in many categories, and I've been on here discussing him as being one of the greats. So, but it you're right, Jokic. It is voter fatigue, but I think it's, which is nuts because he's getting better each year. And so
That makes
that's what's
sense.
harder to, like, fathom and be like, I can't believe this guy's doing
So
it
is
and it's
SGA, by
not
the way.
exciting.
SGA is also somehow
Oh
making
yeah.
incremental progress.
But I
Yeah, and by
think
the way, he's
SGA,
first in the league in scoring right now. With those 250-point games, he's a 32-point per game scorer.
he's much more exciting to watch. I think that it's Jokic is doing everything correctly on the floor, which it's like, do you want to watch Drogo punch uh, Apollo Creed, and like it's over and over and over and over again? It's like he's a machine. He's going to keep doing this. It's just something that he's doing, and he's getting. It's like AI. He's getting more efficient. Maybe that's what he is. He is just a giant AI blob who's getting more efficient, realizing, oh, I can shoot from back here, move the 3-point line back. Okay, like put a 4-point shot. I'll master that. So I think, like, he is in that realm of, like, he's rewriting how to play as a big man. It's like, and we've talked about this way back in the day. It's like when we said, like, would there ever be a a Shaq size LeBron. And it's like, no, not athletically, but we have like a Shaq size Steve Nash almost in Jokic, where he's able to distribute and do all the stuff that MVP was doing, and yet he's 7 foot. So it's nuts to think about.
I feel like you were trying to make a counter argument against Jokic and why SGA should win an MVP. And in doing so, I think you turned a lot of SGA voters into Joker voters. So it's really hard to argue against him.
Yeah.
I've said it 100 times. I'll say it again. And no matter what the outcome of the season, in terms of that award, there's never been an MVP award winner who doesn't deserve it. So I get it either way, but you're right. I mean, if for whatever reason, like OKC lost 10 straight and looked mortal relative to these other teams, I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Especially if the Nuggets stay as competitive as they have. So, by the way, that's another team to watch in this trade market. I don't know what the heck they're going to do because they've sort of nickel and dime themselves with a lot of picks for the future, but that's a side note anyway. But yeah. I mean, what Joker is doing. I mean, he broke the BPM stat metric. Like you can almost just because Joker exists, you can almost just throw that stat away now because you have to come up with a new one because he broke it and it's like an unfair metric now for him and versus everybody else that's listed on it. All right, I didn't mean for that to be such a long discussion, but that was a lot of fun.
No, that's fine.
Um,
I have a quick note, and then I've
yeah,
got a clip for you. So that's all I have for you. There's not much else. We'll save some of the stuff I have for later. My first note, again, I probably need to get this sponsored, but it's like my Joel Embiid rib of the week that I've got for you
I
is
forgot he was
so
still playing in the NBA. Go on.
So Joel Embiid, he's on here somewhere, I think. One of these guys. He has played 446 NBA games in his career. You want to take a crack at how many games he's missed?
Oh, this is fun. Um, I'm gonna say 512.
Not quite. Yeah, just over this past week, he missed his 400th game. So he has played in 466, and he has missed 400. That is, what, 4.5 seasons of games that he has missed. So
That's
that's
bad. That's
that's
bad.
all I
He's
got.
in his 30s. He's in his 30s. He's won an MVP, and he's only in the 400s in terms of games played. And he was drafted young. Oh, that just it just hurts. It hurts to hear that. As somebody who actually cares about like I would. I mean, I'm not like a huge fan of like Joel Embiid's game in the playoffs. I'm not a fan of like the free throw hunting and stuff like that. But as somebody who wants to see that squad succeed, yeah, that's painful, and I bet it's even more painful for hardcore Sixers fans.
I was like real Sixers fans. I've got a bonus trivia question for you. I wasn't going to bring up, but I just found it sitting here. Um, you can either give me the team he played for, the arena it was at, or the year that it happened. Can you tell me when D Rose had his final dunk in the NBA? It happened on November 1st of a year. You can pick a team, an arena, or a year.
The Knicks,
Playing for the Knicks?
yes,
No. He played for like
playing.
2 other teams after that. He put up
Uh,
50 after he played with the Knicks with another
well,
team.
but I think he went back to the Knicks. Am I mistaken on
Oh,
that?
he might have went back to that, but no, he did not do it with the Knicks.
The the T Wolves. He was playing for the T Wolves.
Err,
Who else did he play for? The Grizzlies.
err.
Oh. Did he even play for the Grizzlies? I'm gonna be embarrassed if that wasn't the case.
I think
Um,
I feel like I've seen him in that jersey.
so November 1st, I'm gonna guess the year was 2017. Wow.
Err. You
All
need to get a
right.
real
I
buzzer until you actually
I've,
get
I've
that.
got I've got too many of these wrongs. Just lay it on me. You've stumped me on Derrick Rose trivia once again.
All right, so Derrick Rose's final dunk of his career was on November 1st, 2019, as a Piston in the United Center against the Bulls. He had a. I
Oh,
wish
okay.
I would have saved it and I could have put it up here as a clip. I should have had that. So shame on me for not adding it in. So that's the final bonus trivia question. And to kind of wrap us up, this isn't specifically about the NBA. This is about basketball in general. And so I think I've seen a few clips about how AAU is ruining kids and just the way that the atmosphere and the environment is crazy. But I think one of the things too that's kind of contributed to that is the age groups. And so I wanted to get your reaction to this gentleman. It's via whatever it says on the screen. I don't remember who. And it seems like an older NBA player. You might know who he is. I have no idea who he is or recognize his name. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
I balled and played, and they wouldn't let me play because I was 14. Midway through the day, runs are thinning out. Big Mags, you want to come play a little bit? Sure, so I go and play. If I don't make them lose, the next day I get picked a little bit earlier. If I make them lose and they got to sit out for a while, they're not picking me again. But I'm playing against men. And at the time I'm 15, they see me coming. Hold up, here comes Mags. I'm going to pick him. When I'm 16, they're going, I got Mags. I know he's going to come because he's going to be my number one pick. By the time I'm 17, I can't play with those men anymore because I'm better than they are. I got to go play at Notre Dame every day against those college players. By the time I'm 18, everybody on the park's going, I'm talking about, Mags used to play here. Who made me a player? Did I make me a player, or did those men make me a player from 14, 15, 16, 17, 18? We don't have that today. Kids are in their own age group. They're being developed by the same guys. They're running drills around cones ad nauseum, and they're not playing enough pickup basketball. When I was a kid.
So yeah, so I think that's definitely something. At least for me, my dad was the GM of a health club in Minneapolis, so I got full run of 2 NBA sized courts. I was running pickup games by the time I was 17. So to me, it was definitely one of those things. I was playing when I was 15. I was playing dudes in their 30s, and but I think nowadays, parents and granted, I'm a parent, so I insulate. You insulate our kids. It's like to me, it's let them. It's so funny of how people my age, we used to just run around the block. Like nobody, I'd say, see you, mom. And somebody as soon as the street lights came on, you knew it was time to head back home and then go have dinner. So things are much different in the way the kids are brought up and the way competitive sports are. So I'm just curious, you're a dad, you're going to have a son coming through sports and stuff. What are your thoughts on how the sports and competitive levels are kind of at right now?
Well, I mean, I haven't been into any youth basketball games of any kind anytime recently, but I mean, it that's such a tough question to answer because I mean, obviously, as a dad, I would think, oh yeah, I would encourage my kid to go play with game with whoever he wants. Obviously, be competitive, and they're gonna pick you, right? That's kind of how Jason Kidd came up. He was like, well, I couldn't score, and so I learned that if I just pass the ball really, really well, then, that's how my teams are going to win and I was going to be able to stay on the floor that way. And, a more recent example, I know that this isn't everybody's favorite play to talk about, but I mean, there's a reason, the Ball family had 3 NBA players, one of which who has been able to average 30 points a game, not for a whole season yet, but, and the other two couldn't. I mean, the youngest one is always going to be the best just because he's playing against the oldest guys and the most competition. I realize that
Granted,
that's more of a sibling.
yeah, I was gonna say, and the youngest one is now dropping multi-platinum record hits, so he is a hip hop artist. So
Yeah, he's just better at everything because he is. No, no, no. Uh, no, but I mean, and I don't know if you've ever taken the time to go back and look at LaMelo Ball's, high school performances when he was playing with his two brothers in Onyeka Okongwu. I mean, the kid, he was like, I mean, he was probably like actually 6 foot, but all these other guys looked like grown men compared to him. He was just like the skinny kid running up and down the floor. He was just taking open shots and throwing up like no look dimes to his teammates and just making it look so easy. And that was him at like 14 years old. And so what you're seeing is it's just a very natural progression of a young guy who's had a lot of good influences, played with older competitive players, and learn how to adapt in those situations. I think what that guy with Mags is his name, or was he referring to another player? I think what he's
no,
referring
it was
to is
like
something
David
that,
Maglia or something was his name that was down there.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm
I
not
mean,
sure
heck,
who he is. My apologies to him and his family.
MJ, he attributes a lot of his success to being competitive with his older brother, right? I think younger folks, they're lucky if they have that scenario because I think the norm And what's more likely to happen is for kids to be playing within their age group for a number of reasons. And especially now as like the population grows, basketball has had uh, more and more attention. There's so many more leagues. The leagues are more congested. They keep having to make up new leagues. It's hard to even just play competitively against your own age group. So I think he's kind of talking to me like a little bit like an old head. It's like yeah, maybe if you're growing up in an era with like no internet or cell phones and all you can do is just go down the street and play on the the crappy dirt or gravel court that has a lopsided rim and that's all you have growing up, then it's like yeah, you're gonna play with against whatever competition is there. But I mean, so I would say kids are lucky if they have the opportunity to play against older competition or just against any competition who's better than you currently. That is the best thing that you can do. That's how you're going to get better, regardless of age group. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously you want those opportunities as much as possible, but I can't imagine that they're too easy to come by, especially with perhaps a more sheltered world that we live in.
Yeah, I was
Um,
gonna say, how often are you seeing pickup games outside and not in an indoor? Like you're driving past and seeing dudes playing pickup ball. It's much less frequent than it used to be, and so whether it's having good courts, people are just going to more indoor pickup game type of thing. So at least to me, I always knew, hey, at these times, if I bring a ball, I know people are going to be there that are going to want to play. So I think, and it's the competition. I think is what you want, and some people don't like it. Whether if you're going to play a victim, it's the whole mentality thing I could go down. But if at least for me, I want to be challenged, and it's having that challenge against somebody who's bigger than me because I might face somebody who's bigger than me versus somebody who's going to be the same size. If you're playing all 5'8", 5'10" people, and all of a sudden you play against a couple guys that are 6'4" and 6'5", you don't know how to play against that. And I think it's what develops your game. You have when you play against different size people and different maturity levels when you're playing basketball or any sport, you're forcing yourself to get better because that person's going to stop you if you keep doing the same move over and over again, and you're going to have to adjust and get better. So, and
yeah.
granted, yes, that can happen at similar age groups, but I think it's more of something you're thinking about when that person's so much bigger than you, and it's like, well, I really have to figure out some sort of hook shot or some sort of trick or new move in order to get yourself open or get to the hoop.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun thing to think about. And, even as I'm thinking about it, not everybody has like older brothers that they can play against, and especially older brothers who all also go to the NBA. But I mean, who's the youngest Holiday brother, right? Drew Holiday, of course. He's the most successful and still producing of the Holiday brothers. It's like I don't know. If you have that opportunity in life, like you're gonna see benefits from it, but they are hard to come by. So, and I think that's true for anybody of any generation, anywhere. It's not like all these guys who were former NBA players were so because they got to play against older guys. I mean, just those opportunities are going to come up when they come up, but I would encourage it for sure. Always play against the highest level competition that you can, as long as it makes sense. Don't throw your 5-year-old out there who's like still trying to learn how to dribble and heave it up against six guys who are 6'4" and
Oh,
expect good results.
I was putting Jack against the G Leaguers this week, so we'll see.
He might, he may have done pretty well, actually. No, no, no. I'm kidding.
All right. Well, this is going to do it for the Bucket Bros. We hope you guys have had a great time here chatting with us or listening to us chat about all of this stuff. I want to make sure and direct you guys over to our TikTok and our YouTube. Make sure you guys are going over there, following, comment. My word of the week is engagement. Engage on our stuff. Don't just put some emojis. Put an honest, authentic comment or reaction. Even if it is something that's negative and hateful, I still want you to be authentic with it. So
Maybe some positive stuff too. I'd be okay with that.
yeah, that's fine. So yeah, let us know anything that you guys are looking for. Go and find us on all the social medias. We thank you guys for watching. If you're here watching this far or listening this far, we definitely appreciate it. As you can see, we are evolving and things are changing. So hopefully we can get better and get faster and getting these things out to you. So yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for liking. Talk to you soon.
All right. This has been the Bucket Bros. Until next time, take care.